What is up, everybody? Josh Tapp here again, and welcome back to the Lucky Titan. And today we're here with Mark Firth. So this guy, when I was reading his bio, I was like, this will be a fun conversation. We have actually a lot of common points in our past, but this guy is really leading the charge right now in honestly kind of a new business model that I've been seeing a few individuals tack onto. I think it's like revolutionizing the agency space. So I'm excited to talk to you, Mark, about your business, about what you're doing for your clients, and then obviously getting some good tips from you. So Mark, say what's up to everybody and we'll hop in.
Hey everybody, how are you doing? It's fantastic to be here and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
It'll be a good one, Mark. So I want to kind of kick this one off, Mark, with the epiphany story, right? Is we look at all the different types of business models, right? And you're a guy who's come from a corporate background, worked for some massive companies, IBM and other places. I have a question for you about that after the interview. Anyway, total personal question. But about IBM, you've worked in those big places, but then so you've seen all the different types of business models you could do starting your own company. You've kind of settled on this one that's a hybrid coaching / agency model.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious what was that epiphany moment where you're like, this is where I need to land?
So that's a really, really interesting question. And I love the question because it's not often when I do these interviews that people talk at this level about business models. They want, just the tactics. Right. And I think for me, it really came from a phrase or a term or a concept you hear a lot in the SaaS space, which is product market fit. And we did just over $1 million with what I would call a pure coaching model, LinkedIn coaching. That was what we started with. But in building that business, not only did I expanded beyond, LinkedIn, I was doing paid advertising, various platforms. I was looking at CRM systems. I was looking at, multi-channel, all this sort of stuff. So I decided what I wanted to do was expand the program and move into that. And what we found very quickly is that with our target market, which is B2B professionals, consultants and small businesses, consulting agencies, and even some SaaS, not a lot of them had the ability or the time to set up the infrastructure. They had the knowledge. Everyone's got the knowledge. We've all got the knowledge if we want to. But when I started off doing it, I noticed it was taking longer than I wanted them to take, even with like step-by-step and assistance and my tech person getting on calls. So what we started doing is moving away from coaching, not to full agency model, because in that niche, and this will be an interesting one for you, I've kind of seen that for that type of business where you're really selling the individual and a professional service, there's a degree of thought leadership and knowledge that needs to be conveyed to the market. It's been very difficult for them to find an agency that can capture that for them. So on one end, you've not got the time, not got the motivation. I understand that. The other end is they've been to the agencies and they've got burned. So the product market fit was giving them the setup and then the assistance to run it throughout. Does that make sense? So it was really just what the market asked for and by getting going, because one of the things I believe in business is you learn by doing. you don't learn by thinking about it and having a conversation in Facebook groups. I'm being a bit cynical, but do you know what I mean? And it really came from the doing.
Well, and I hope people will lock into that answer, right? Because I do ask a similar question to that to quite a few people that I know have a great answer like you, is that's how you do it, right? Is finding that product market fit. We look at, there's kind of like two worlds in the business space, right? You have like the MBA corporate types, and then you have the entrepreneur types, the bootstrappers. And both of them think there's not crossover when it's like, it's the same thing. It's like, truth is truth, right? So I love to see that you were able to do that through, actually polling people, figuring out what they were interested in. Because I know for our business model, we ended up, I never thought we'd be in the podcast space, to be completely honest with you. I just had a podcast, but when we started doing good things there, people started to ask, how do you do it? And then that's become like our full-time business, and it's been crushing it. So it's kind of a weird thing that sometimes you don't end up where you think you want to be, Yeah,
it's true. It's really true. And I think also, if May can just continue on that point.
Yeah, please do.
A lot of businesses, they're confused, and understandably confused, because every time you go on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, there's someone saying, oh, in 2022, you can't use Times New Roman, you've got to use Arial. Obviously, I'm being very facetious by saying that, but a fundamental tenet of marketing. They have to position their solution or tactic as the new way of doing things against the old way of doing things. So people get muddled and they focus externally on the tactic rather than listening to their clients and their prospects that they've got right in front of them. And I honestly believe the quickest way to get that product market fit, to get that solution that works, is just to get going. Sell it before you build it, and listen to what people need. It's as simple as that.
Well, and I want to ask you about the growing pains around that, because I know for us, we've been doing this offer for about 2 years. And what's interesting is we always have like one client who's a lot more particular, and they always think they're being annoying. And for us, we love it because it's always kind of hits you in the heart. We're like, dang it, we didn't do the best job. But it's really interesting to have them give us that constant feedback, because it levels us up every time something like that happens. Yeah. And
every prospect is a gift. They really are. And we can either look at them as, nightmare prospects, which they might be at the same time as being a gift.
Right.
But really, we got to listen. We got to listen. Unless really it's something that is just crazy and out there. So it's interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've had a few experiences like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there is that opposite side where you could be running too hard trying to fix problems that only one person has and the rest of your clients don't have. But it's just, it's always interesting to see that. So for you, Mark, obviously you've been working with dozens of companies, maybe hundreds of companies at this point, and helping them with these same issues. So kind of walk us through what you've been doing to help people in that space.
All right. Yeah. So as ever, and I think this is usually the case, I set out to solve a problem that I had. And once I solved that problem, I realized lots of other people had it. And that problem was this: when I began, just like a lot of my clients and a lot of people online right now, because it's got super complex, super quick, right? Everything's gone multi-channel. The tech has kind of mushroomed since the you-know-what started. Just in case this goes on YouTube, we won't mention the you-know-what. But the problem is a lot of people are stuck using what I would call traditional B2B methods, which is outreach, cold email, and cold calling. And there's nothing wrong with outreach, cold email, and cold calling. I'm not saying they're bad things. I'm not going to be that person that comes in the feed and tells you to stop doing it. They are good. But I don't believe, to the depths of my bone, that enough or potential, people are using 5% of the potential if they're not looking to expand them by looking at other projects and solutions. Because when I was doing that, I found that my time was directly tied to lead generation. What that means, if I take a day off, I miss a day, kid gets sick, before you know it, you've missed 2 weeks and lead generation is gone. And it's also very difficult to scale that. So that's when I started looking at paid advertising for B2B, because I was like, there has to be a way to get this going. And people are like, LinkedIn won't work for ads. But we figured it out. And as I figured that out, that got me, I'm speaking to you from Florida now. I'm from the UK. I spent 10 years in Colombia. My wife is Colombian, and it actually enabled us to get an investment visa, which isn't cheap, to get in this country and move here and still have the time to do it. So really the problem we solve is getting away from those traditional channels, and not getting away, enhancing them with kind of more of the PPC and the paid advertising and an inbound channel. And it's kind of like a 2 + 2 = 5 effect. When you use both of them, it equals 5 as opposed to using them independently. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and you kind of like brushed over it, and I within there, but it was such a key point that I have to touch on there, is that there's no bad method, right?
No,
all methods work. You just have to stick to one of them and learn how to master that area, or hire somebody who knows how to do it.
Within reason. Obviously, if you're writing faxes, but that's an extreme reason. I totally agree with what you're saying, because there are still people doing things that count. Becoming a master of something is always going to get better results than flirting around with something and an inch deep, a mile wide. Versus an inch wide, a mile deep. You've got to get that kind of combination of the two, I find, in getting the business going before you have enough scale to hire those specialists.
Yeah. I know for us, and this is something for those of you who are listening to this, is that make sure that you already have product market fit, like prove an offer out. And then start diving into these methods, because what always happens is everybody's sitting here going, oh, I need to have Facebook ads. I need to be on TikTok. I need to have a podcast. I need to have all these things. And it's like, well, what's the point if you don't have a product that sells well, you know?
It's we would say where I grew up, you're changing deck chairs on the Titanic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That is the sad truth of the matter, right? And most people don't look at it that way, right? Because as entrepreneurs, we're so hopeful. We know the direction we're going.
Yeah.
But even, and I would even challenge a lot of people to say, even if you think you've got your offer figured out, you might not still have that part figured out.
It changes so quickly as well these days. The market is more educated than ever. I think it's Daniel Pink. I read a lot of books. I can't remember the book, but I'm pretty sure might not be even Daniel Pink, but I'm pretty sure it is. He talks about, the asymmetry of information. When I started in 2003 in IT, I knew a lot more than the prospect. Now in 2022, the prospect knows as much as me. Probably not as much, but they certainly believe they do, and they've educated themselves. Right. So we really have to adapt to that. And because of that, things change so quick. Their needs changed, and you got to be on your toes with the offer, Yeah. Really you have.
Well, it's interesting to see how the market has shifted that way, because I feel like with the resurgence of courses and programs and masterminds and group coaching, everybody kind of has a pretty solid knowledge of of how things work.
Yeah, they do.
But I will say this is where someone like you come in, is that the problem is everybody knows everything in their mind, but they don't know how to execute on it.
And even if they do know how to execute, they sometimes don't. And that's a whole different subject if we're going to mindset. But there's so many more components to it. People have, what I would say, compared to, I don't know if you find this, Josh, back in 2017, people didn't really have that base level of knowledge about what online marketing is, but certainly now that they do. They have that base level of knowledge, and we got to work with that,
Yeah, 100%. And I've found, I mean, everybody on the show who listens to the show knows this, but about 6 months ago, I want to say, I actually hired a company, paid them $35,000 because I thought they were an agency. Quite honestly, I just thought they were going to do it for me. And I don't want to slander their name. They're great guys, but I was just not sold correctly. And so I came into it, and then they handed me like an 80-hour course, 100-hour course. And I'm sitting here going, do you guys realize that I have like maybe an hour a day to put into something like this? Yeah. Maybe on a good day. And I'm curious how you've been bridging that gap with your program, because this hybrid model is so awesome if it's executed correctly.
All right, I'm going to answer that on 2 levels. And the first one is kind of this pet hate I've got that I'm seeing in the B2B space, and you'll have seen this as well. Guaranteed results. We guarantee you get results. There's nothing to lose. It's free. No, it's not free because of the economic principle of opportunity cost. Their business model, in most cases, from what I've seen, is pilot high, get lucky, get profitable from the ones that work, let everything fall through the gap, and credit on them. It's a good business model for them. But if you are the client, it's not free, because if you spend the next 6 months doing something that doesn't work, you've lost 6 months and you will never get that back, unless, unlike myself and the general population, you've figured out how to travel back in time. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, yes, we saw this. So that also continues in the program. If someone comes into the program and they've got video after video, 45-minute dense videos that they have to wade through and move the slider and find it and do the thing, no matter their best intentions as an individual, I had to admit to myself, we got great results. We got pages and pages, but there wasn't enough people going through the material as much as they wanted. They got what they needed, but sometimes they don't need to go through all the material. Sometimes they just need 1 or 2 things. And so what we've kind of done is we still have a module full of videos, but we've used kind of technical documentation software. It's not technical, to just say where to go for each thing. So when people come on the course for coaching, sometimes they'll come in and they'll go, I need help with email deliverability because we've set it up. And what we used to have to say is, you need to go back through the program. Now it's just like, go to this point here, and it tells you what to do. So what they don't have to do is go through hours and hours of video. And also we're kind of setting them up with all the infrastructure, with all the software, so it's ready to go. So they don't need to do it. It's just that I'm going off, and I appreciate this is not a good way of delivering it. But the analogy here is instead of selling them a car and asking them to build the car, we're building the car and then showing them how to drive it, and we give them the keys. That's what we are finding works best.
Yeah. And I love that. I've never actually thought about that model of the guarantees, and, because their model is from the 10% who actually win. We get it.
I can tell you, I know the lead generation market. There's no magic pill. I've been in it since 2003. There's no magic bullet. There's no thing you press and wave a magic wand and it works. And even if these are amazing, they're still not going to get results for everyone all the time. You got to be careful. You got to be careful. Everything's got a commercial model behind it. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying, look at it.
Yeah. Well, and the ideal that came to mind was when you were talking about, right at the end, your analogy of, build the car and then teach them how to use it. Right. I love that because, I mean, Tesla, great example of that. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth of the matter is like their company built something that people don't know how to drive.
Yep.
But now it's, I think, I don't know how true this was. I saw this on Facebook the other day, but I think oh my gosh, what is his name? Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk just passed Jeff Bezos as the richest man in the world, which I thought was really interesting.
Wow.
From just this teeny little company, right? So really total tangent there. But what's interesting is they have built a brand, like you said, build a vehicle and then teach people how to use it. And the truth of the matter is people are willing to learn. They're like, just don't send me a course. Tell me where to look, right? I know already how to drive a car. So you don't need to teach me what a steering wheel is. I know what a steering wheel is, right? So I love that you guys have mastered that model. And I hope a lot of you listening to this are looking at your business model and saying, how could I do something similar to that? Because I've been finding that a lot of agency style businesses, if you will have training videos, it doesn't have to be a course, but training videos on how to use the product, it eliminates 90% of the time you have to spend educating your customer.
Yeah, and then there's also I by the way, I have a background in teaching. Random tangent I had in the career when I was a bit lost. And there's a thing called flipped learning. Flipped learning is just basically the concept they do the work before they come to the class, and then the class is about implementation. There's not enough of that. It's watch the video and ask questions. Watch the video and ask questions. We actually say do the work before you ask about the work. Don't ask how to do the work. Try it.
Right.
And that's what you're talking about there. I kind of felt it's like do some stuff and self-serve and all that sort of stuff. It's realistic. There's got to be a mix of what serves the client. And if someone's a beginner, they probably can get away with all the videos. If someone's a complete newbie, because I've generally found people without much money and without a business, they have lots of time. But as soon as you move into people that have got money, they don't have time. So it's that trade-off you've got to figure out if you're going to make your offer work. Do you know what I mean? You're going to go for broke people or people that have already got money. Because if they've got money, they haven't got time. So figure out how to make it easy for them,
Yeah. And honestly, exactly what you're saying is the reason why our offer has been working, because we're like, I don't want to work with brand new entrepreneurs right now. Eventually I want to get back into that realm. But I was like, I want to work with wealthier people. And we found that it's just, you're like, literally, if you can say, hey, I promise you X results and you only have to spend an hour a month, they're stoked about it, right? Or no time, whatever, whatsoever, right? Yeah. That's what they get excited about. So I love that you touched on that. Yeah. So Mark, we are coming to the end of the interview here, and I want to ask a couple of final questions here. So first off, where can people get access to you and your program?
www.markfirthonline.com. And I've been told that's not phonetically friendly. So we're just setting up today. www.clientsimpact.com. Clientsimpact.com. That's a bit easier, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, maybe with an S though, right? Clients, plural.
Clients Impact. Okay. I could buy Client Impact. Clientsimpact.com. Yeah.
Love it. So everybody make sure you go check that out, especially if you're saying, hey, I'm ready to have a paid strategy. These are the guys you need to be working with. And then Mark, just to ask you one final question. If you could give us one final parting piece of guidance for our audience, what would that be?
It's just expertise and mastery comes from doing, not by thinking about doing. That's it. That if I could summarize the one thing that's made the big difference in my journey in building this business, it's learn by doing. Don't think about it, do it. The equivalent of thinking about it is wanting to drive from where I'm now at, Florida, to San Diego and waiting to see the California state line before you start driving. It doesn't work like that. You've got to start driving. Otherwise, you're never going to get to the point where you see that state line. That's it.